coalition.
Well, Brad might have announced it because John doesn't do Facebook, but we look a lot alike.
But it looks like nobody from the Prairie Homeless Coalition?
She, yeah, Beth is.
That would have been you.
Well,
Maybe it just didn't reach you.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody from CORE?
They're not in.
Okay.
I checked this morning.
I did send it to Cora.
From St. Tim's?
No.
No? Nobody from Brookings? Nobody from Port Orford? Is there a Port Orford representation? No?
From Neighbors to Neighbors, nobody, I don't see anyone in there.
Coast Community Health? Okay.
okay, well, we're gonna call this meeting to order, and please stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Microphones, gentlemen. Amendment approval of the agenda. Look for a motion to approve that, unless there's an amendment.
Make a motion to approve it.
Okay, got a motion to approve the agenda, and I have a second from Jay Trost. All in favor say yes.
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 I say yes, motion carries 3-0. So sorry for the little bit of a delay, but we've got it figured out now. The presentation started at 10 a.m. and we're talking about camping regulations. So the ordinance 23-03 codifies a policy regarding prohibited camping within the unincorporated areas of the county. The policy enacts reasonable restrictions on the time, place, and manner in which individuals are able to camp on public property. Community input is an important part of determining the best manner in which to proceed with the development and enforcement of this ordinance. So that brings us to this meeting, community input. Who would like to input from the community? Anthony Pagano can't hardly wait to input. So has everybody seen or read the ordinance? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Reading it, it talks about being back so far away from the water, and yet when you go to the campsites along the river, they're right on the water. They've been leaving campers and trailers all summer, people that don't even live here, just leaving them, coming and going as they come on their weekends.
Excuse me, ma'am. Who are you?
I'm sorry?
Who are you?
Oh, Sherry Oles,
Oh, and you're from whereabouts?
Brookings.
Okay, so you're talking about what's going on up the Chetco.
Yes,
Okay.
up to Checo.
Social Security or
Farther up.
Well,
And so the question people have been, it's been constant trying to figure out how the locals gonna get up there. They're running generators, so the tents can't, people out there, you know, what are the baselines? I know it said September 1st, you go back
State
to
lands.
2 weeks ago.
yeah, I think ma'am, we're
So-
talking about state lands and
yeah, those aren't county lands.
Miller,
They're
Nook,
managed-
Redwood.
Yeah.
Oh, when we're up there, the sheriff in there said they're county. That's why I came.
No, well, within the county, but they belong to their state. Those ones are managed by the Forest Service, and so it's just like this. Essentially, this ordinance wouldn't impact what is established inside Gold Beach, per se, or inside the city of Brookings, or essentially along the 101, which is also the state corridor.
Okay.
So this is
Unless the county owns property in that jurisdiction.
Right.
exactly.
Okay.
So this would include the McVeigh Park that.
McVeigh is also belongs to state parks.
But they're in the process of letting it over.
Correct. If they did, then it would, yes.
Then it would.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So County Road it basically stops at Loeb, just a little bit past, right? And then that's the Forest Service property or road all the way up to.
That's what I assumed, but when I was talking with the sheriff, because we were trying to figure out
Well-
if he spots the phone reception.
Yeah, I think we.
Well, the sheriff's responsible for the law enforcement of those areas, right? That's for certain. He still would respond to a situation out on Redwood, or Miller or Globe, right? OSP may come for some of the state ones, but that's his jurisdiction is the whole county. So, but this ordinance pertains to county-owned lands, if that makes sense.
Okay, so where are those campgrounds located?
Well, the formal campgrounds that the county has are Boyce Boyce Cove Park and Flores Lake, and then Lobster Creek Youth. Well, we call it the youth campground, but it's because it gets confusing with the one out on the road. It's the one up the Lobster Creek Road, and then yes, they're working on some portions down further south. Potentially, Social Security Bar is in discussion.
Yeah, my
And-
grandparents started that one up, so. I
Oh,
know that
perfect.
well.
And then McVeigh obviously has been in discussion as well, but those aren't currently county parks.
Right.
But this would apply to county roadways, right? County right-of-ways, things of that nature. So that's a little more vast than just our county parks. If that makes sense.
Yes,
So I've noticed,
thank you.
You're
welcome.
even just going up the Chetco on the weekends, early in the morning, like on a Sunday morning, there's people camping alongside the road, not camping, but they're sleeping in their vehicles, they got and we noticed that on Highway 101, right, all turnouts, they park their RVs in front of the sign that says no camping tonight. But, and the same thing happens on the Chetco.
Yes.
So this ordinance would cover that, right, Mr. Fitzgerald?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well,
It
it
would.
covers county lands. That particular issue with the waterways was developed just from observations of campers being, I don't know if the correct term is camping, but people basically maintaining a household near a waterway that results in hardcore, pollution into the streams, which then has to be either cleaned up or goes into the, road department has to spend a fair amount of time cleaning people's clothes out of their grates and so forth, and all of that will be minimized by having a setback and protecting the waterways of the state by doing that.
My name's Trey.
Sorry, sir, we kind of messed up a little bit, but could you come up to the podium so that they can catch you on the microphone? You may have questions similar to people that
Sure.
watch.
So my name's Trey Littlejohns. I just moved to Gold Beach. I'm a retired prison chaplain in California. So I have an interest in this population, marginalized anybody. But I need somebody to explain to me, because I've read this ordinance now 3 times, and I still don't get it. I'm not real sharp anymore. But, so I think of where are the homeless gonna live? Can they put their tent in Buffington Park? Is the question I've got. And
I think you're
and
getting.
so, no, but then I hear you guys say this applies only to the county. So we're not talking about the city of Gold Beach.
Right.
Correct.
Now, are we talking about Rogue Hills, which is outside of the county, outside of the city then, type thing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, 'cause that's where I live.
Unincorporated areas like
Okay,
that?
Neither here nor there, but that's, I look
Yeah.
down at an empty
Okay.
piece of ground, right?
But I
So-
don't know, excuse me real quick, I don't know if Rogue Hills is a county road. Is that part of that,
I think it's a private road as far as I understand.
like the
it.
Indian Hills that,
Like above the senior citizens place, above.
oh, okay, like Driftwood,
Yes.
yeah, Hillside Terrace.
Sawyer Drive, all
Okay,
that.
that is county. I was thinking
That's
Indian
county.
Hills out
Yeah,
on North
that's
Bank,
where I
so.
live, which is county, so I have
Yep.
an interest. But, I just need somebody to kind of explain what is, the ordinance is talking about county. And are we talking about a place for the homeless to live, like Portland's talking about developing 250 sites for their people in 6 different places and all that? Is that what we're talking about? Or establishing shelters for the homeless, like Coos Bay, Devereaux Center, or what, are we talking about any of that?
This, I think, is just initially establishing some structure on kind of the transient style of camping, not establishing a set location that's would be suitable for people to actually long-term camp.
And actually, the ordinance
just- go
is
ahead.
meant to preserve the rights of the public in the public lands, in the county-owned public lands. And so time, place, and manner restriction allows for people to sleep there, but not to, like you said, live there. But if you know, I mean, if you're interested in developing a place for people to live, that'd be good.
Well, I'm just curious what the discussion is really, because you read all this stuff, but it was hard for me sitting back reading these things as I read the ordinance to know what are we actually talking about.
We're talking about preserving the rights of the public to use public land and not be denied those rights. And so making it an equitable distribution so that people are allowed to either sit, lie, or stay in a sort of an unsupervised environment in a very limited capacity, because it's dangerous for people to be doing that, and it's not something that the public should be encouraging.
So are you sort of like talking about designating a place where they could go and hang out?
No.
Not right now.
No.
Now that conversation is happening in many areas, right? Because so from my limited understanding, and I'm sure there's people in here who can correct me, and please do if I'm wrong. So when Martin v. Boise occurred, right? It essentially said you cannot criminalize people for sleeping in public areas. But it did provide some structure around the fact that sleeping is different than living. Sleeping is different than camping, right? So what he just referred to as the sit, lie, lay, right? You can sit, lie, lay in public space, but you can't put down a structure. Now what we're saying is that you can, but only from these hours. And then the structure has to be folded up, cleaned up, and then you go on with your day. And so then you're not establishing essentially not permanent, but you're not establishing a long-term spot in public space. And so you're right. There are a lot of communities and counties and cities that are identifying particular spaces within their jurisdiction. And if the space is identified and provided, then you can enforce sit, lie, lay regulation in public spaces, right? Because then you have a space for them to be able to go. If you don't, then you have to put structure, or you can put structure around the sit, lie, lay legislation. So is that?
And I thought it said if you don't have anything in place, then they can sit, lie, lay wherever they want to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Essentially.
That is
That's
true.
the reason
Does
for
that
the.
apply to the city of Gold Beach? Can they sit, lie, lay in the city of Gold Beach too? Could they sit out here on the grass in front of the county building if
Right.
they want to? Or
So
why?
all incorporated areas, Brookings, Gold Beach, Port Orford, have their own set of stuff. This is county.
Okay,
This is a county.
Yeah,
This is
back to city.
Yeah.
I can't
Thank you.
we can't
So-
tell
so
the.
I was just, thank you.
It's okay.
No, that's
You're
great,
fine.
because those are questions that I think a lot of people have.
Yep.
A lot of people
It's
are
very
confused
confusing.
about how it all operates.
So, sir, before you step away, there is a discussion in the city of Brookings, and part of that discussion, I heard the city council discuss communicating with the state to potentially take over the Harris Beach rest stop area and turn that into one of those locations. That was something that was being discussed. They also discussed a temporary location down on Railroad, which is part of their city yard. So those conversations are taking place, but that would be within the city of Brookings. So it's not our jurisdiction.
Very good. Yes, Anthony.
So I'm just reading through this, and your section on replace restrictions for size of camps,
Yeah.
limited to an area of not more than 100 square feet. So multiple like travel trailers and RVs are going to be bigger than that. Is this going to affect those? Can they not stay in a travel trailer if they are exceeding the 100 square feet?
I don't, yeah, I mean, with that, we actually picked that up. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Even for a giant, what is the square footage of one of those giant RVs?
I'd say 250, 300.
Okay.
And I only bring that up because there's one that's parked at Jerry's Flat that
Yeah, I
I've
know,
noticed.
right.
Well, you start talking about eight,
Well, I-
10
If
feet
it's
wide
10 by 30
30.
feet, the RV, it's 300 square feet.
Yeah,
And they got 46 feet of
I counted, I came home from, up north the other night, and I was telling this to you. On my way back, it was about 9 PM, and I counted, 32 RVs on the side of the road from Port Orford to, Cape Road. So, it was quite a thing.
That's quite a decrease from when we were in the pandemic.
And that was.
Because
a-
we were packed
It was a Sunday.
all
as
the way
well,
up and
so-
down the highway.
But, yeah, that's definitely, but again, that's a state, right? We have very little say because that's a
State right away.
Well, that's actually, there's 101 federal, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a federal road. So we don't get to, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they have signs on that federal road, that state federal road that says no camping.
But they also put porta potties out there too.
Well, they said
So-
that was for the race. They had the
Yeah.
race this last weekend.
Is there any state funding backing this county thing?
No.
Not at this time.
Anthony, are you guys identifying a location?
Yeah, we have 4 spots.
Or
So you have.
We've got regulations of how far they can be from 101, where they can be. The only thing we didn't regulate was time frame. That was based off legal counsel advice. So
Whereabouts are they?
we've got one off of 4th Street, 2 off of 5th Street, and 1 up Gauntlet.
And they're vacant lots?
So then legally, I have a question. If in the area in and around Gold Beach that's in the county with those designated spots, would that be counted as,
No.
why?
Well, I say no, I say it prematurely because, well, this was discussed in the Brookings area, that if, let's say, if there was one established in Harbor, Brookings couldn't change their policies based on one being in Harbor. It has to be within their jurisdiction to be able to enforce said rules in their jurisdiction in that manner. So the county would have to, from my understanding, the county as the jurisdiction would have to create its own space to hold accountability for, if we were going to increase the level of accountability, right? And say we're not allowing sit, lie, lay in public spaces because we've designated this space for that purpose. We can't say that we're not going to allow it because we're going to co-designate with Gold Beach.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns still. I think there'll be a lot of legal challenges surrounding all of this stuff. But I'm just thinking of, some places in Oregon have jurisdictions that are in close proximity to each other, city to city type thing. And I just wonder, I wonder how those challenges will play out.
Well, because it sounds like, so basically you have four locations for permanent camping.
Temporary sheltering. Ours are not permanent camping.
But you said there's no time.
We didn't do a time frame as far as when you can sleep there and when you can't. So how your guys' is set up where you have to be out by 6 a.m. We were advised by legal to not have a time frame on that.
Okay, so
It's temporary unsheltered sanctioning.
how do you frame it?
I'd have to get our policy out. But
Be good to review, huh?
Hmm?
Be good to review.
Yeah.
Well, would it behoove us all to have the same policy, have the same ordinance? You call them policies, we call this an ordinance.
That would be amazing, because advocating and explaining this to the people we work with is gonna be a nightmare. I love, City of Gold Beach has already leaned in, and they've got a wonderful color brochure that we can give to people in the city when they ask, hey, where are we allowed to be?
Can I see it?
So, yeah, it's an amazing tool, and we're very grateful to have that information to very easily share with our clients and people that are just passing through even.
Well, we intended ours on being a working
here's the
document,
policy.
so as things come up and change, we can adjust it, so we
Sure.
just wanted to have ours set up by July 1.
Yeah, well, that's the intent behind this, is to educate and learn, and that's why everybody's here,
And this
so
is
that's
the-
what we're trying to
That's
do.
the policy.
And I'll send that document and the other two guys right now.
Pardon me? That's the policy.
I'll
Mhm.
send the brochure and our ordinance to the rest.
Okay, that's their policy.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, I don't profess to be an attorney, I don't play one on TV, but I think the timing is gonna be challenged.
And why would that be?
Is your language in, sorry, I'll answer
No,
your question just a second. Is your language, I didn't read the ordinance, I'm not gonna, but I have it. Is their language much like what the city placed in their ordinance, that if there's a discrepancy or a concern, that there's a 90-day window to come and meet with the county, and giving that opportunity to resolve issues before it goes into a legal wrangling? Is there any language like that in your ordinance? If not,
I don't believe so. I think we put a emergency clause on this one. I'm not sure. I think, yeah, we did, because we were under a.
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
under a- Yeah, so.
It's
Talking
just
like an
for
appeal.
consideration, if people have, Anthony, go ahead, I'm
And a-
sorry.
and
No, I think it's
clause?
more like an appeal, and I
Yeah.
think it's state mandated that it was 90 days. For
Okay.
that way
Yeah.
you can work out between your jurisdiction and the complainant without having to get things involved.
What, so tell me about the time and, you know, what's
Well,
the problem with it?
Again, I'm not an attorney, but my understanding of the passage of the new law was to expand on Martin v. Boise. Martin v. Boise says 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and establishing a sanctioned sheltering in your community then takes that to, you're allowed to, there is no time restriction. You don't have to pull up all your stuff and be out of there by a certain time. This allows for agencies like ours, for example, or Brookings Corps Response, to come to you or go to the city and say, hey, we could establish some infrastructure here. We can put some porta potties. We can put, hand washing stations and waste bins in our dumpsters, so that we don't have the garbage issues. We don't have the public health issues that have been brought up. So.
But that would be for an established location, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because the current legislation is 10 to 6. That's the current legislation. But if you were to have a space designated, then I think that a lot of that gets renewed.
So I have
What
a
I
question
heard
about,
was
I got a question about, just to make that, so one of the problems that I see with the county having a space is because of the size of it.
Right.
And so, and also I have a problem with Gold Beach setting up a space and then having us, when nobody's looking, sliding people in there, right? I mean, that happened to me when I was running the port. I would turn around and I would see, police cars delivering homeless people down to the port. And so well, it would be important for me that I'd be wanting to work together with everybody. And so, but in reality, I mean, we really need like 3. We need for the county, because it would be, unless you're going to have a person, like a group like this, work as basically partners with the individuals and have funding to drive them to our spot, it's going to be unworkable. I mean, it would be difficult unless we have 3 that are relatively, where you could reasonably say, look, you're here, you're on the harbor bench, there's a place you can go to. And we're not saying you should go to
cities.
Brookings City shop.
Here's a pamphlet.
So I mean, that's, I mean, I like the idea of that. I like the idea, cause I don't think that it's certainly not the taxpayer's responsibility to be cleaning up the trash and providing, that's not the people that should have access and use of all the public spaces in Curry County that belong to Curry County should be the Curry County taxpayers. That's how we generate, that's how we.
Many of our folks that we serve are Curry County.
Well, actually, the people that pay the taxes, though, are, I know, I'd be interested
Are
to find out, and
taxpayers.
I've heard that. How do we determine that?
They're working, they're being gas taxed, they're being taxed.
Gas tax?
They're just
They're
not
paying
paying tax
taxes.
property, right?
They're
don't
just
have
not
it.
paying property
Yeah.
taxes, they don't own property, but they're taxed, and they deserve representation as well. There are some people within, let's just talk in general terms, there's all kinds of nuance within the population,
right.
Diversity and nuance within the population. The people that we focus our energies on are those that want to get traction and motivation and want to change their trajectory. The other folks that are happy with where they are or are telling us this is what they want, this is their choice. We understand that there might be some mental health or behavioral health issues. If somebody's okay with that type of lifestyle, and that's a referral to our mental health and behavioral health provider, because that's outside our scope of work. We're not mental health and behavioral health professionals. But for people who want traction, and there are a lot of them out there that are working and living in their vehicles.
I see them living, I see them going to work
And we
in
have
their cars,
business
yeah.
owners that are buying gym passes so their employees can take showers and come to work ready to work and be clean. You know, we have, within that population, there are a lot of people who are really just trying to hang in there and struggling to establish. We've lost 35 to 40% of a long-term rental market to short-term rentals in the county and within the cities as well. Glad to see that some jurisdictions are taking measures to kind of slow that down a little bit.
It'd be good if the state would take some measures to
The state
protect
does
landlords.
To the question
say,
earlier, the
right on.
state
I was gonna
does
say-
have money, you guys, there's
just-
money at the state level, I heard somebody say
I-
no earlier, but
I-
there is money at
I
the
agree.
state level.
The one thing that I want to just expound on, that I keep hearing this, and I just want to say it on the record, just my opinion. But we keep demonizing short-term rentals for long-term rentals, but we don't acknowledge the cause of why there were so many more short-term rentals. There was government overreach to long-term rental landlords that caused, not maybe,
But still we're
cities-
here.
sorry.
We're still here.
We're here.
Still
no
having to
attorney-
deal with the
But-
fallout.
But I'm just saying, we also need to recognize that was government overreach. The ripple effect of government overreach created people moving away from long-term rentals because they lost the ability to actually operate them for short-term rentals, which they felt more security with.
So true.
It's the reality. And so, you know, so I understand now it's our problem, and we can, you know,
Right.
it's spilt milk now, but I also, you know, not to demonize all the time people who are just trying to protect their assets.
But a lot of those
Yeah.
people won't come back into the
Correct.
long-term rental market because
Unless-
they're not insane. Until Oregon remedies its landlord-tenant laws and gives at least some shrift to property owners, then it's a hollow argument in my view.
Now, with all due respect, for every story that I hear about a long-term rental owner that's losing money or has shifted to short-term, I hear of a tenant that's being either discriminated against or a tenant whose landlord is wrongfully and illegally removing them from their rental. So
With all due
there
respect, I
are
don't have that experience as an
arguments on
attorney.
both sides.
I know there are, but
I mean,
you know,
I totally get it, and there's probably both sides, right? There's tenants who aren't taking essentially self-ownership because they stopped paying and put that landlord in a position to where they had no other choice, right? And potentially could have most likely lost their place, foreclosure, because they couldn't make their own mortgage. And I'm sure there's others who got scared through the entire scenario and decided to take their own matters. But you're right, we are where we are It's just, I feel like there's never enough acknowledgement that we are fixing an issue of overreach. Now, this issue was here prior to that too. We still were short long-term rentals. This just exacerbated it.
Yes, our development numbers decreased dramatically from
Sure.
08, 09 and the big housing bust, and we've never come back.
Yep. Sure, and we
So-
have other huge obstacles like zoning challenges, right? We have an entire swath of land between Gold Beach and Brookings that is forest grazing, that has been inhabited, but has no capacity to build additional places on. And so there's a lot of people that I know that would, right, that would provide additional housing, but then you're faced with zoning and then environmental groups who go and contest any type of conditional use, which is so there's a lot of challenges, Beth.
Sure.
A lot of challenges.
Absolutely, but I think we're on the right track, and I'm glad we're here today because this is a first step and a good first step towards coming together,
Yeah, we gotta have
finding
a
common
discussion.
ground and working together to find solutions here because we're not the only county. I mean, we're one of every rural American county in this country that's struggling with this.
Okay, we had a couple questions from the audience. Yes, sir, come on up. And then Phoebe's after that. Introduce yourself.
Can you speak to how the enforcement's gonna work on this? Because I see a lot of laws everywhere, including the no camping or no overnight, that are just ignored. And I don't see, whereas I'm not dogging law enforcement, I suppose their hands are tied, but we make rules and then we don't ever enforce them. So the people that are breaking the rules know this and they just do whatever they want. And the second part of my question is, how will this affect the county being sued by homeless coalition or rights groups that say this is, put no damper on these people? So those.
So,
Brad, you wanna speak?
Yeah, I'll speak to the enforcement side of things. So one of the mechanisms that we have put in place is a code enforcement position within the county. And we'll have 3 code enforcement positions. One will focus on things related to building codes and structures and issues pertaining to, that require a specialty. When you put a building up, where it goes, the size of it, the type of electric that goes into it, that type of thing. We'll have a specialist that does that. And then we'll have a component of animal control, so any animal-related issues. And then the other component will be focused specifically on this ordinance and issues around this ordinance. And that person will be specially trained. That person will have the authority to enforce this ordinance. And it will also have the resources to help someone that is in need of help. So we have also had a conversation with the district attorney here. We had that, what was that, I don't know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. We talked to our district attorney about actually enforcing things, actually writing citations and getting the district attorney's office on board to make sure that even if it's a minimal type of accountability, we're gonna follow through with that. We're gonna follow through on it. We have parameters that the state sets that we have to work within, but we can still enforce within those parameters.
Would that be through the sheriff's department?
It would be the sheriff's department, our code enforcement officer, and our district attorney for county-related issues. Within the city of Gold Beach, it would be Gold Beach, Brookings, obviously Brookings. And also on a state highway, it would be the state police. So we also discussed with our district attorney some specialized training around this ordinance and issues like this ordinance, so that our law enforcement officers know exactly what the elements of these codes and laws are, how to prepare and document those reports, and then how to follow through with that. And then it's our job to provide oversight to make sure that it's getting done. So that's how we plan on kind of looking at this through a different lens and making sure that there's some follow through. Again, some of it is minimal because the state mandates what it is, but we can still follow through with it. And we plan on doing that.
Answer your question, sir?
Yeah, one more thing I forgot to say is, me and my wife really appreciate what you're doing. You probably don't get thanked very much, but actually doing something about it as citizens is really important. So thank you for your time.
We thank you for the thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that because we definitely don't hear that very often. But
We gotta see if it works.
the other thing that we're doing is we're pulling in all of the county's resources to help us with this. An example would be some of the RVs that you see that are abandoned or are being used inappropriately, and they're expensive to remove. When you have a big RV and you've got to tow it, the cost associated with that is pretty extensive, and then you got to store it, and then you have to get rid of it. So there's a lot of money involved in that. Well, we have the ones that we've recently moved. We have used our road department to do that. So we've used our own resources to save some costs there, but we have to store those out at the road department. Now, eventually, they're gonna build up. So we're working on some mechanisms to get rid of those as well. But we're pulling in. It's kind of an all hands on deck attitude. We're gonna pull every resource we can in and do everything we can to work within the parameters and guidelines of our state and local regulations.
So regarding that, I was just thinking about, the issue of the RVs and the square footage. Cause I was, probably a month ago on the way to Brookings, just south of Rainbow Rock, there was a giant RV that was just pulled off on the shoulder for weeks, right? And so I'm not writing a rule that allows that. I'm not gonna do it. But I like so there might be a way to modify this that if you could designate one spot in the county for RVs to park, and that would, I believe that would probably obviate it would address that issue, and then you'd be, because that takes away my concern about the 3 locations. We say, well, because if you're in an RV and you decide that you don't want to stay in an RV park and pay transient lodging tax and deprive all the residents of Curry County of the normal benefits of trade, then we should have a place for you to stay. I'm not saying it's nice, but I am saying that there could be a place where they could be regulated. When I drive down from Coos Bay down all the way to Brookings and I see all those RVs, I think how much tax revenue is lost by people who just choose to, and this started long before the pandemic, that people started to kind of locate where they wanted to. I remember people, it was a bitter pill for me when I would have people park in the parking lot of the port, but we had an RV park, and so I just charged them RV park rates every night, and then you got to spend all night with me knocking on your door till you paid. Because I think it's I feel like that the vast majority of the members of society want to play by the rules of society, and I understand that there are special circumstances, and I've never been a person that wasn't able to deal with people that want to help themselves, but I kind of think that the way that our system, what we have right now for a lot of these situations we're discussing, it's not helping anyone. It's hurting them.
Phoebe, go ahead.
Complying with the state.
Hey, Phoebe Skinner, and right now I'm Phoebe Skinner, citizen, and then I have a city council hat to put on, but for Phoebe Skinner, citizen, I did just want to come back to the short-term rental story. So I taught for 8 years in Port Orford. We've been back in Curry County for 10 years. And I will say that I taught government and econ. So that balance between state and private is always shifting, and sometimes it's balanced and sometimes it's super imbalanced, right? But we had students whose family, they had to move out. because their rent went up $600 in a month before the state came in with their severe measures that's tipped it the other way. So there's got to be some healthy balance, right, between the private sector and what the state's doing. But there was a reason the state came in with a heavy hand like they did. When my 7th grade girl is now homeless because their rent went up I don't even know what I'd do if my rent went up $600 or my mortgage went up that high. I will say also on the RV part, because I drove that road from Gold Beach to Port Orford every day, twice a day, it's a wide income level that's parking their RVs
Oh,
on the side
I
of the
totally
road.
agree, right.
So that's something to keep in mind too, that we're not just talking about those without shelter or reliable shelter.
That's what I mean. I mean, part of what we're having here is that the people that actually are in extremis are being, I mean, that situation is being exploited by
a lot of people, yeah.
who have just,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. I too agree. I thought about getting a county uniform and knocking on the door and bringing it to the county park coffer. I don't know, it seemed weird. But as a city councilor for the city of Gold Beach, I do want to say I've been through a lot of League of Oregon City workshops with our lawyers for League of Oregon City on this topic. And to your question, once we do something as the city or the county, we're able to enforce things. Once we say you cannot be here, but you can be here, then we have that enforcement mechanism. But until that was set up, law enforcement couldn't do anything.
Right.
Because the court has deemed it a civil rights issue.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
And then the other piece of that is what Administrator Pagano said, is that it's constantly evolving. So whatever the county decides to do, what we decided to do as a city council, it's constantly going to be changing. So this isn't like the conversation. So as the court and the appeals and all that process goes through, and as we learn, as a city, as a county learns, as a county, we're going to have to adapt it. So I think that's something that's good. I was very pleased when we were in a meeting with a lawyer that's a legal aid kind of advocate to hear about this 90-day, like, before you sue us, come talk to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need more of, right? And then
Yeah, I got a question for you though, Phoebe.
Oh yeah.
So when I hear there's no time limit, that kind of doesn't.
Time limit on how long someone can
Yeah,
stay.
I mean, yeah. So can you explain, you or Anthony?
So where we went on the time limit piece, so there's
Yeah.
2 parts of time. The time limit of saying you can only stay here for X number of days.
10 p.m., 6 a.m.
And then you have to, the time frame.
Yeah.
Well, it's different, two different
Time topics.
two different topics.
So the first topic, as far as how many days you can stay,
That-
our
that
lawyers,
designated
our
space.
viewpoint, from what I, as a counselor, heard from our lawyers' viewpoint, is that that's arbitrary. Like, how can you decide how long somebody should stay and where they're going? So that one's hard. The time frame one, though, is tied to the court cases, and that ever-evolving piece is that if you have somebody working at the mill, a swing shift, and they have to check in to the designated spot by 10 p.m., but their shift's not over till 11, or they have to be out at 6 a.m. in the morning, but they didn't get off work till 2 a.m. So that's the time thing on that, where we're watching the case law evolve. Like, if we're saying you have to have a place to sit, lay, or rest, and your rest hours are actually 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. because you are working the swing or night shift, that's my understanding. I don't know, Pagano, if that's what your understanding was too.
Yeah.
So that's why that. And then the other piece, I was very excited.
Now that-
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
No.
Skinner. But what you just said is speculative of future legislation.
Not legislation, but the court's interpretation of what's going on. Yes, definitely
in terms of
speculation.
legislation. It's speculation.
Definitely
The current
speculation.
rule is 10 to 6.
The current rule
Okay.
is that, but with the way legal aid is working around the state to pull lawsuits front and forward to the courts, I am very much willing to err on the side of speculation as a representative for the city of Gold Beach, because I don't want the city of Gold Beach to be where the city of Grants Pass was. So that's when I was voting, that's where I was really feeling like it's better to err on the side of caution as to what might be quickly coming down. And the speculation is advised by the legal team at LOC. Like, I'm not making it up from my head. Like,
No, but I'm just saying it's not rule.
No, it's not the rule.
Not
Yeah.
rule. That's all I'm saying.
Yep, it's not the rule. But I feel following the rule could leave people open for being sued in the
If they don't adapt, if a new rule is enacted.
But the suit and the name and the press, that can come under the current enactment of the current rules. So even if you're currently following the state legislate, the rules of the state, someone can bring you into the limelight and be like, look what they're doing. They're discriminating against this mill worker who's not getting off. So that's just my take on why I was listening to what the lawyer said on what they see coming down the pipes in our district, in our federal district court, which is quite on one side of this issue, it feels, in the interpretation. The piece that I was excited about earlier, and then I'll turn it over, I think you were next, Kirk, was the idea of doing some consistency, because I think that's going to give everybody more, like, again, coming from the 20 years of teaching, when every teacher in the hall has kind of the same expectations, things are manageable. But when everyone's doing something else, it's, well, here I can do this, here I can do that, why aren't you the same, blah, blah, blah. So I like that idea of thinking about consistency, and I did email out our brochure, digital copy, and our ordinance to the four of you. I think I sent that.
You did. Beth had a question real quick.
Yeah.
Point,
To Anthony, or?
point of clarification to you all, what I think I heard earlier was that there is discussion now about moving to the next level, so of potentially establishing a place people are allowed to be. So my question, if I'm right, then my question to you is, why would you only adhere to what the law is now if you know that you're going to take that next step eventually versus, you know what I'm trying to say, leaning into what your future plans are versus taking that posture, if you will, of time, enforcing
just kind of abandon the public interest before the
talking about
fight?
the time. I'm just talking about the time. That's the question that I'm asking. I'm not asking you to abandon your responsibility for the.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting.
I'm just asking.
I think it's interesting, like the hypothetical that she gave of the mill worker who can't adjust his schedule. I'd be interested to talk to that person, obviously, and I'd be interested to talk to the employer and see if, and figure out what, on a case-by-case basis, that would be a thing that we might, and if there's a 90-day appeal window, then that's, I certainly wouldn't be like giving up ground because I represent the county, and the county
Majority.
has, well, it's not just the majority, the county has constituents, and all constituents should be able to use, to the greatest extent possible, public lands. And I just want to say, hang on one second, I just want to say, like, for example, there's so many different levels of use. If you're in California and you rent a boat slip, you go to a marina and you rent a boat slip, and doesn't matter what your boat is, doesn't matter what's going on, but at the end of the year you get a bill from the state of California or for the county because they tax you for that mud underneath your boat. And we have all these property owners here that pay for their property. They pay taxes every year on numerous levels, and they have and tied to that they have obligations, they have mortgages, they have all sorts of responsibilities. And those, those obligations, I feel like if you're going to use public land, they should extend to the people using the public land as well. And I mean, I would be interested to have people that were engaged at that level. If people wanted to take up residence on public land, and we've abandoned the incredibly restrictive statewide land use laws that were put in force in about 1971, Senate Bill 100, that really kind of drive where we are today. But if we're going to abandon that, then why not look at, if you want to have a tent on county land, you should pay for it.
Well, and I think that there may be an intertwine of two different discussions occurring, right? The time and place is we're discussing that with the idea that we do not have a designated space.
Correct.
For people. If we had a designated space for people, that would obviously be completely looked at differently.
it'd be handled differently.
It
There
would
would still be,
Because if you
there'd
don't
be-
have time and place set up without having a space set up, then you're just essentially saying, well, yeah, any place, anytime, all the time. Right? And that's not conducive, I think, to what you're saying in terms of public use. So I think we have somewhat two different discussions. I think if we're discussing the current ordinance, meaning we do not have a designated space, then yeah, I'm in the opinion that time and place is critical. Because
The employee can always go back to their employer and ask for reasonable accommodation. In other words, the county has a rule, I have to live by this rule, and I change my work schedule. So, I used to do reasonable accommodations all the time, in my opinion, so, just saying.
Sure. So
Well, I see that too, is that if we have a code enforcement person that's something they could work out
I mean, there's.
until he gets,
well,
you know.
I mean, it would essentially, I mean, basically, especially with the labor market that we have right now, you know, obviously you'd be able to switch your shifts around if you were stuck in some really limited living situation. But at the same time, I'm sure the county is happy to accommodate an employee who is working, and we should, you know,
Yep.
that's, perhaps we should look at modifying our ordinance to put some sort of exception in there
Case
so that
by
we
case.
can, yeah. Because, I mean, in the event that there's a person that's you know, working, or say it's like the guy that was out in front of the Welcome to Brookings sign a few years ago. He was out there for months, and they interviewed him, and he said he was waiting till he could get a job at BC Fisheries, because when crab season opened up. Well, so I went and talked to him, and I was like, you know, have you thought about anywhere else? No, he's waiting for that. Well, I went to talk to BC Fisheries. He hadn't applied. And so then I went and I said, well, how come you can't move? Because I'm just that way. And he said, my car's broken down. So I said, okay, I called my friend, the Pape mechanic, and he's on his way. Shop truck, I'm paying, we're fixing your car. He started it up and left. And so, I mean, that person was I don't know what was going on, but it wasn't what the public was being told. And I think that's what a resource officer can do on a level where we can go in and say, because I'll tell you, if you're waiting to get a job in this town till crab season opens up, trust me, we can get you working. There are plenty of places that you can work.
And I may be misconstruing kind of what you were talking about, Beth, in that if the county were considering designating a place, right, then this ordinance goes away,
Right.
Changes.
right? It completely changes. So if you're thinking like, if you're forward thinking in that manner, then why are we discussing this one, right? I mean, I don't, maybe that's
There's two issues. We have the current ordinance as it sits today.
Mhm.
And then we have another conversation potentially, which is a temporary shelter location. Now that's completely different, because now we're talking about the location and the public input associated with the location.
Yeah.
We're talking about who's paying for it. We're talking about who's managing it. We're talking about who's,
Talking about commitment of law enforcement.
yeah,
presence
I mean,
there.
that's a totally different
Sure.
conversation.
No, absolutely.
But, so.
And it may be a necessary conversation.
It may be, and it may be a direction that we end up going. But this is separate and apart from that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
to me, the cities have, the onus falls on the cities, because that's where people I mean, most of these folks are without a vehicle, a lot of them. So they're not gonna walk,
Oh, yes, they are. I'm not gonna lay it all
well, I
on the
mean,
city.
no, but I mean, that's where they're gonna congregate. I mean, Anthony, you agree or disagree, but Brookings, Gold Beach, Port Orford, if we have a place, up 7 miles up to Chetco.
Well, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
I agree
but-
with that.
Yeah, you congregate where the services are, so, so we have to work hand in hand, and, yeah. Connie, Hunter has her hand up. Was there somebody oh, Craig. Kurt?
That's the gentleman will
Yes, I'm sorry, Connie. Go ahead, bud. I saw your hand early and I forgot you, so I apologize.
My name is Kirk Nelson. I'm a tax-paying citizen here. I'm also a client of the Homeless Coalition, and I technically am also homeless. And so, in a sense, I am that mill worker that you guys are talking about. So a lot of this kind of hits home for me. And I think really you guys are doing this in the wrong order. I think you should be establishing somewhere that people need to be before limiting and regulating where they can. Because, yeah, maybe it doesn't work with your work schedule to be out at 6 a.m. But even if it does, you get out at 6 a.m., what are you going to do with your tent? What are you going to do with your bag of clothes? What are you going to do with all of your things when you have to go to work? Where are you supposed to put that kind of stuff? You got to have somewhere established that you can be safe, you can have your things before you can start to build up from the ground up. It's
So how are you doing it right now?
very difficult. Like I've been here almost 3 years, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
So you have
I was able to, a few months ago, got into an apartment finally.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Not even 2 months in, I was illegally evicted.
Illegally evicted?
Yes.
How does that happen, Ted?
Doesn't happen, but I mean.
It does. I can prove
And
that
what,
to
they
you.
came and jerked you out?
No, they changed the locks on me, sent me a text message, and said you are not allowed to be back on this property
And
because they didn't agree with what I was doing, and they had a rule with no pets, yet there were pets all over the property. So just to follow their rules, I had my dog registered as a service animal, which supersedes her rule. She didn't want to accept it, so they kicked me out and just put my stuff outside, sent me a message, and I had to come get all my crap. I could fight it, but what ground do I have to stand on? Nobody gives a shit about what we have to say.
So where are you at now? Right now, what do you?
Right now, I'm staying with a friend, but as I've learned before, that could end at any time. Anytime they could just decide to throw me back out, and then I have to figure it out from there. Many times have I had to restart, go sleep at Buffington Park for a night, make sure that no one could see me because I'm not allowed to be there. But I've been trying to. I've been working for as long as I could. Yeah, I've been the job I have now. I've been there about 6 months. I work full time. I'm there 6-7 days a week. And if I don't have somewhere to be outside of there, what am I supposed to do? I just now got a vehicle. I didn't have one for a long time. So I have somewhere as a backup. But what about the people that don't?
So how's it work if we set a place like this up? And then you decide to interpret our rules the way you think they should be, which is what you did with the dog thing.
Well, that's not interpreting rules. That's
No, that's definitely interpreting rules. You didn't agree with the landlord.
because
So
half the people there already had pets. The landlord was making
right,
a rule
exactly.
just to
That's what I'm saying. So
she was singling out.
so
certain
then
people.
so that would be an argument against setting up a place like this, because I guarantee that you will have at least some people that won't be following the rules. And then if we have a group of people that are there, the argument is, well, they're not following the rules. That's this gentleman's argument right here.
But
I
see,
don't have to.
I still followed the rules.
But
Yes, other people were not, but I followed the rules and did what I had to do to make sure legally I was in the right.
Mhm.
I wasn't just saying, no, fuck your rules.
What?
I was.
What?
I'm sorry about the language.
I will kick you out
No,
of here.
actually-
I apologize. I
Actually-
get passionate sometimes.
Actually,
and I don't.
you were
control.
saying that.
There's a
Actually, you were
difference.
saying that, and I'm not saying that that's a fair. I'm not saying that that's a fair statement. I don't know where you were living, and I don't know the scenario. But when a landlord makes a rule and you don't want to follow it, and it's illegal, there's a process for that. There is a process which you chose not to follow. You're claiming that it's illegal. Very likely was an illegal eviction with an illegal process that needed, in our society, the way that we work that is that you have to resist that. So when they change the locks, then you re-enter the property that you have a tenancy on. They don't have a right to change the locks on you. So then you would move in. If that was the case, the sheriff's gonna come and he's gonna say, you're under arrest, that's not gonna happen, you were living there. They'd say it's a civil matter and you'd continue living there. So my point is, when, you know, you're recommending that the county set up a place where people are gonna be interpreting the rules, and unless people are held to a standard and follow those rules, then it's not gonna do, you know, it's not gonna be positive for anybody.
Was I interpreting the rules, or was I just following rules set by a higher authority than the landlord?
With getting your
By,
dog.
by getting the service papers?
No, there is no higher landlord. If the landlord says something illegal to you, then
But
you
we're
can,
talking about what I did, not what she did.
about what you well, no, we're
By,
talking about.
by
Oh no, you
interpreting
didn't
her
make
rules
it.
my
You didn't.
way.
Yeah, you didn't make it right. If she says there's no pets, and you had the right to go do that, that's fine. But the issue that landed you on the street was them, unless the story's changing, the issue that landed you on the street was them changing the locks with no notice. Is that correct?
Yeah, she didn't want
That
to
was the
accept-
illegal act.
Yes.
And I think that the fact that we don't have a legal aid office puts that on a burden, because if he's working 6 or 7 days a week, can't afford rent, how is he gonna navigate finding a lawyer when we don't have a legal aid office? It's just as a,
Actually,
it's just as a mess.
I have attempted to contact legal aid for people with less income. I never got a response. I left multiple messages. It's not that easy to just go and
Yeah.
write those things,
Right.
especially when you don't have anything to back you up.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Connie, you're next. Thanks, Craig. Kurt, sorry, bud. Phoebe sent your
This is
name and said
a
Craig.
conversation we've been having for a long time, isn't it? I'm Connie Hunter. Yes, don't demonize property owners, nor should we demonize those people who are down on their luck for no fault of their own. And our system has created a lot of homeless people for a lot of different reasons. But I want to talk about veterans and students specifically. But I have a question about Commissioner Trost. You mentioned the property that the county owns. Was that the 40-acre piece of property that is just sitting there? It's owned by the county. The land use is too restrictive to build on. Is that the property that you were talking about a moment ago in your conversation?
I think she's
Between
talking
here and
about.
Gold
I think
Beach?
when she's probably referring to when you said there's land between Gold Beach and Brookings.
Oh, I wasn't talking about county property. I was talking about just property zoning in general.
Okay.
There's a lot of local owners that are in between here and there. I think you're talking about that 40 acres of Crook property.
That's owned
or
by the county.
It's in the middle of Crook. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's more
No.
by Hunter Creek area.
Yeah.
Pistol River, I think.
It's
Yeah,
right
that-
outside Pistol River.
That's
and
again, restricted by state land use issues.
Correct.
That the state is actually trying to address, by the way, and so, but one thing that was, we'll talk about that, because I have some ideas.
Sooner hold back the tide than get forestry grazing changed, right? That is in your opinion?
I don't.
Yeah, because it's currently zoned forest grazing.
So the good news is, one option that you have, and this was stated by Gary Milliman when Julie Schmelzer had a conversation about veterans and the economic value of veterans in Curry County. We talked about housing for one, but that could be sold or traded. Anyway, the recent pilot article talks about community development and economic development with regard to community colleges. Students' housing has to be in the conversation. When we see a lot of our younger people who are not in a pipeline for social services that would be normalized in a community college that was actually functioning and had student housing, we would certainly have some opportunities for our young people that we don't have, and also wraparound services. And of course, that's been an ongoing struggle with the college district not leaving enough money here. But we've raised enough heck that I think that they've turned things around, and their last board meeting that they had explained that they were doing an additional, I guess they're calling it reinvesting
Connie,
in
I'm
free
gonna
campus.
I'm gonna interrupt you because we're getting off topic.
Okay, but I'm
I
getting
know
right to
your
the housing
passion is-
part. While they had that presentation
Yep.
and awarded 28 acres of property, I was there myself saying to the Rio Tinto people and everybody at the college, we need another piece of property. You're never gonna have a balanced budget for this campus and serve the people without student housing. I have a meeting coming up with the vice president and
Okay.
the college dean to talk about this, and I would like some input from this commission to make sure that I am speaking, and please use Matt Vordestrasse at the Housing Authority as
Okay.
a resource.
We're talking
He
about
needs to be in
camping
this
and not
conversation.
campus.
All right.
Today.
And just remember, you can make that conversation with the state. A two-way conversation doesn't have to be one way.
Thanks, Connie. Anthony.
So I was just looking through this, Ted, and on section 6.06.030C, subsection C, individuals
What
camping
page?
are specifically authorized by a permit approved by the Curry County Board of Commissioners. That's kind of your case-by-case basis. You
Yeah.
already have it in there.
Show me the number again.
What page number is it, Anthony?
It's page 6. up
Okay.
at the top.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see?
You
Right.
kinda have it in there.
Individuals camping is specifically authorized by a permit approved by the Curry County Board of Commissioners. Well, you're right, we do have that in there. That would be a way that we could work out on a case-by-case basis. My scenario, obviously, I just want to, I want to minimize, people that are exploiting the system, and also I want to, I know that when I was running the port, we had a no camping ordinance, but I must admit that we had some camping because there were some people that needed to camp. And when you see people, I've known some of these guys that for years live in their cars, and they show up and they work every day, and everybody needs to work with those people, and the people that are, the people that are exploiting the system, and I really do feel like I'd love to have a conversation where we could actually talk about, and I think that's kind of where we're going. I want to have the resource officer be out there working with people and getting them the help and the resources they need. And I want I want every aspect of the county to be out there, like collecting the, picking up the RVs and minimizing that, and also not allowing it to start going forward. But at the same time, I also want to go back to the good old days where people paid to stay in an RV park, like you're supposed to, and also have insurance on your RV when you're driving it around, instead of buying it in Crescent City and driving it across the border and then party on. And I'd like, and that just requires actually that everybody be involved in the conversation.
Anthony, I have a couple questions for you. The 4 locations that you guys have designated temporary, how are you covering the costs associated with those?
We're not putting any infrastructure in.
So nothing at all, it's just a designated area?
It's in that area that we're resting.
Okay.
What about
So no,
bathrooms or no blue room, no nothing?
Was there any community input on identifying those locations?
Yeah, we had several meetings.
Okay.
What do you do about the trash?
Well, we haven't had any issues yet.
I like that, okay.
The word really hasn't gotten out, I don't know, to the population that would use those locations. I'm not sure that they're really aware. And much like what we're doing here, we hope to have future conversations, since we are situated here in Gold Beach. It's our primary location where we work, to have conversations with the city about what the future of those locations might look like.
And that's
We do
kind
have abatement in the budget.
Okay.
In our city budget, there is an abatement amount.
Okay.
It might need to be altered for next year.
and then my next question is anybody using those locations?
I have no idea. I've not driven by.
Yes, ma'am?
We've issued one ticket for somebody breaking the ordinance. That's it.
Okay.
Somebody not using that space.
Somebody refusing to go to that space.
Oh, gotcha.
Now that I know what this is about, from the great lesson on that, there's a lot to learn here. I have a lot of life experience.
First
And
name, first name?
Sherry.
Yep. Ask her.
So I'm owner of a business. I hire homeless. I've gone to sheriff of state to make sure that they will let me know if their tent will be safe. They don't want to work because they're scared their stuff will be taken while they're at work. I put 22,000 miles on a brand new vehicle, taking them to and from. If they do not stay clean, sober, and on duty, which they call me, very, very much wanting the job done correctly, they no longer work for me. They will get a second chance. There will be no third chance. I've adopted a homeless man that came through. No alcohol, no drugs. I get tired of people not being able to separate an addiction person that's homeless from a homeless person that needs a hand up. There are separations that need to happen. I work for the state parks and I drove semi. Urine dumping, even at a truck stop, was disgusting. There's a lot of things like with the state, when you go up to the park, you can come and get permits. You pay for a yearly pass. That can handle the cost of their trash. They can come up here and they get a camping permit. When I grew up, camping was free. We traveled for a month through the Yukon and Alaska. We stopped wherever. We parked wherever. We did whatever we wanted to do, and it was freedom. That seems to be a lost sense because you have now government involvement here. Sorry, I don't talk in front of people too much, so I talk with people all the time in my business, but not like in front of a lot of people. So I'm seeing that I was told, because in my business during the summer, it's a lodging business, that we're packed out. There is no place to park their RVs. Wealthy people, poor people, didn't matter. They had no place to go. I informed them because they told me that this highway side over the ocean is state side. East side is county side.
Mhm.
Where the enforcement goes, which, with the law enforcement part of it.
101.
On 101, and it's been that way for years. So for all of these to come about without people getting irritated or knowing facts, we need to know the actual facts. Because getting told so many different versions from so many different people, we're like the blind leading the blind, type situation going on. And we're not helping you out, put it that way. Because I'm saying, oh, I'm so sorry, but if you go along the coastline, and then I hear about all these people parking up there, and they're doing stuff. Well, their dog's tied up. Well, I'd rather have their dog tied up than running around. A little bit safer. There's a lot of just arguments, rants, and stuff going on, and I didn't see any resolutions happening or anything like that. So my thing is, you have in a state park, you have hosts. They volunteer. They park there. They service for free to park there. They go month by month or sometimes 2 months. If they like it, they put in for it. That's a situation that can be used in this county if you have transients. They can pay a minimum fee. They can pay a permit fee to pay. They're not broke. And they need to separate, make sure that they have to be clean. I mean, they can't, it's just like anywhere. You can be here for your opportunity to find a job, your opportunity to build up your income to get that down payment for rent that costs $3,000, or more. You have to be able, and not needless to say, I work right across the border on the other side of the state in California, which has more lenient laws than here. I've worked no days off for 4.5 years. I came in at $90 a night. It's at $402 a night now.
Wow.
I've worked my way from scrapyard up, and the first thing I had to do was get rid of homeless. They were taking baths and hot tubs. They were doing anything. But I also spent every single lunch at the community lunches with them. A lot of times I recorded to find out who they are so I can slap down a restraining order, because in California, misdemeanor is trespassing. They can walk in, sit down, enjoy their day with you, and their sheriff won't even bother to waste their time to come. They told me you have to have a restraining order, which requires a lot of information. And so that started off. Well, I started to meet them. I started to get to know them. I started to see who and what, noticing pastors that if you are coming in with confrontational behavior and drug-induced, they will call the police, have them what do they call it? No trespass.
Trespass.
But then the police, who one is my son-in-law, also, they also, and I have a lot of family, sister, sheriff, and all that stuff. But it's, they have a stipulation at their job thinking that these lunches is creating the problem, is bringing them in. And I've seen a lot of elderly there, people that have homes there. I go, and I'm a business owner.
California or Oregon?
Oregon, in Brookings, and I enjoy the company, the people who serve. Their hearts are more golden than mine could be. I'm more of an enforcing person. So I say every night when I get off my duties at the state park right next door to me, I have blockaded it. It's a day use park. It was filthy. It was a dump. People couldn't go there. There was trash constantly. We have volunteers that come in and clean up. The fire marshals from Smith River came over, gutted it because I had sheriffs came out. I have swords taken at me. I have people arrested. I have people that, that I know. I've hired one person that was out there. Actually hired one. Walked up, you want a job. This is what you've got to do. So each person is different. They're each individual. You got to get to know them, to know how to react or how to treat them. Being trained in the state parks, for 6 years, I worked for, I actually lived in Brookings and drove all the way to Humbug every year, for every day. And I loved it. And I was like the woman who, you're going to pay me to teach me how to do tools. I don't have to go to the gym anymore because I'm going to be muscled out right here, It was exciting. And that came from opportunity of donating my time, volunteer servicing, training office skills to people at a workforce center. I mean, God provided every weird career I've ever had. And from it, I've learned about people. And I agree that you can't have people living constantly with no, like he was, Chad was saying, the guy's telling he didn't apply for that job, but he tells you that he did. And you try to believe in what they have, but you have to do a follow through. I'm one of those that follows through fast. I don't sit around. And I've had people aim at my car, tell me at nighttime tell me this is the day you need to leave. Who do you think you are? It's your worst nightmare. And I just have 911 with a flashlight there and stuff. And they will leave. I don't know if I just have the fear of God looking upon them whenever I'm talking or what. But I also have compassion. Because they said, oh, my car's broke down. Okay, do you have someone you can get a ride with? My daughter came by one time. We got him coffee, took him to the bus, just down the road. And there's just hearing all this stuff. It's just like, I was so proud of him to stand up. I know there's a lot of learning in your young life still. You have a lot of lessons to learn. That's when we get older, we look back saying, wow, if I only knew all this back then, life wouldn't have been so difficult. But at the same time,
Would you like to apply for a code enforcement job?
actually, I'm just sold my business, so I have an opening in my
Well.
life. I was going to take a vacation. I haven't had a day off in 4.5 years.
Don't start now.
Yeah, I know, and
Don't
that's
retire.
yeah. And then on top of it, I drove semi for 2.5 years after the state park, which is accident. I wanted to learn to drive stick shift, got in the wrong school, and then realized I raised half the town. They're still in my house, and I said,
Okay.
if you're not leaving, I guess I will. But anyways, so I know what it's like to be on the road as a semi driver, being treated like a homeless, trying to find a place to park. I see the semi drive. I drove up. I see the semis parked out there. They have nothing for semis here on this 101. When I came back here to Brookings after 2.5 years on the road, I pulled in for the Alpha Omega and finished off driving one guy's to the Bay Area for him from the mill. And to even get a place to park, to pull in for a fuel station that was appropriately sized in the amount of time you're scheduling. If you've never done it, there's a lot more than just driving involved in semi driving. There's a lot of work involved.
We need to stick on topic, ma'am.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I appreciate your.
Well, that's the whole thing is when you're seeing these people parked, you've got semi drivers parked out here. You've got the tourists that I sent out here because there was nowhere to park. It was overfilled. And then you have the people that go by day to work that see things It doesn't bother them. It doesn't affect them. They don't stop and visit the ocean. They just look at it as they drive by, but they have control issues. And then you have, I noticed, no, like campers being parked there with the vehicles leaving and
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And leaving and coming, and like he was saying with his tent, either or, where are you going to put them if you have a job?
Right.
So my thing is, if you get this area, like the city might not be able to have that, what is that, liling, whatever that you were saying, that lay down, sit down.
Oh, sit, lie, lay?
Sit, lie, lay. Sorry, it's the first time I've been involved. I've been working for 4.5 years with no time off. I have not got to actually know more than just meeting people on one-on-one. But if you had a place in the county within a mile range, just a walking distance to their places, they have food banks and lunches, and you have hosts they're hosting. You have a small fee, which if they can get their cigarettes or their alcohol, they can do that as long as they stay clean and sober, type thing. Then they can pay for that garbage service or whatever, a potty house or whatever they need to do. I
Okay,
can
we need to
guarantee you
wrap-
they know,
we
I
need to
guarantee
wrap
they
it
know
up.
the codes to the showers at the places. They have code locks and they will always get the code. It's not going to stop them.
No.
I watched 2 days ago. I was down in Sport Haven and watched one come up with a bicycle, punch a code in, and walk on in. I says, "How'd you get the code?" There's always ways.
Need to have a question here.
So yeah, my thing is, I don't know. It's one of those. There's a lot of options without. I don't know. Where is the help for those that are drug induced? That I see laying on the streets in Harbor by a lot of the problems is over in the shopping center. And they kind of by the tobacco shop that works for a center.
Yeah. Well,
In that general area. And I watched the sheriff come in yesterday, and he was awesome handling the situation. But what I didn't see was, other than jail, what's set up for these people? I mean, and we need to separate the addicts from the homeless. The people can start recognizing the need for low-income housing even. It is a 9 to 15-year wait for a one-bedroom in a low-income housing because there isn't any. It's made for two, for families, not for single. And these are, if you go out there and you meet these people, a lot of them are single. Where are the single? They're elderly.
okay, man,
disabled.
we're getting off topic again.
Oh, I know, but if you want to fix that issue, you have to work on other issues at the same time.
Oh,
And that's the
this
whole
is
problem.
what you're talking about is a much bigger and in-depth conversation. We're just trying.
I guess I need to learn
We're just
more
talking about this ordinance.
We're just trying to figure out about this ordinance, but yeah,
Yeah.
solving the issue is a.
But you have to stop the tourists from
Giant.
coming through and enjoying themselves by having this no parking. I mean, they don't even want to come here. You're going to lose tourism.
You mean because they can't
They can't enjoy
find a
the
place
ocean
to
and
park?
park because they have these no parking signs all over the place.
That doesn't seem to bother the ones.
Well, no, I think there's no
No camping.
Yeah.
signs, which are being violated every single night. But yes, yeah.
When I see a RV disconnected from the truck or the vehicle that pulls it, that's a problem. That's
Mhm.
For months in
Right.
the summertime, you look right below Rainbow Rock, you're gonna see the same RV, two of
Someone
them.
stated online that when they asked the police officers about it, they says all they have to do is pick up, move 5 feet, and there's nothing they can do.
okay. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. Be back here at 11:40. Okay.
Okay,
Because I've drank too much coffee.
Okay.
we're gonna take a
Or an addict.
Hey, Anthony, do you guys have a municipal court? You do? So your citation, does that go into municipal court? What's the
Hi, my name is Derek DeGroot, Klamath County Commissioner, and so I'm running for second vice president of the Association of Oregon Counties. I believe that our association is perfectly poised to solve problems and bring solutions to Oregon politics and communicate with the legislature about the diversity of Oregon.
I'm Jay Bozovich, and I'm a Lane County Commissioner. And so I've been a commissioner for about 8 years and 11 months. And my favorite part about being a commissioner is this job is different every day.
Hi, my name is Alex Tardif, and I'm a commissioner for Columbia County and currently serving as AOC treasurer in my second year. And the thing I enjoy most about AOC and being the treasurer is the ability to bring 36 counties together to build a state vision to move our state forward into the future while building a livable, workable community that we all want to enjoy.
All time the map as we pass time, telling us how fast it's taken up on 5, 10, maybe 20 miles per hour. That's about to change in a big way. Only 50 to 75% all current speed advisories get changed for the next few years. Now, the advisory, you better hit it. What change? The current speed set 8 cars nearly 8 decades ago.
Sign that doesn't have a rider on it, so we
in the 1980s, in the Department of Transportation video, you could see pack known as ball bank. The ball would follow the car going up higher. The faster the car went, and the higher the bank occurred. Technicians were pretty good at setting a speed, but it was hard to be consistent. Add to that, well-meaning maintenance crews sometimes close speed crashes that would be unsafe.
The old limits were set back in the 1930s and 40s and were changed very little until just recently. So now our limits are taking into account newer vehicles, a little bit more aggressive driving style, and so those limits are going up.
And going up in a big way. This is Eric Leeming, a traffic devices engineer with ODOT. He's driving an ordinary car with some extraordinary tech on board. A GPS device that records data as he maneuvers every curve in the road. Back at his office, Eric can upload the data recorded in the car, and special software determines exactly the right speed for every curve, every time. Most speeds will increase by 5 to 10 miles per hour, but in some special cases, it's much higher.
The state has a deadline of 2019 from the Federal Highway Administration, but with 8,000 miles of roads to investigate and potentially thousands of signs to change, they're not wasting any time. They're getting out there right now.
Then we're going to W113.
This is about Inspector Lonnie McDonald. Lonnie's overseeing placing signs along a road stretch Oregon Highway 22 between Depot and Grand Ronde. We have what are called chevron, those bright arrows that warn you steep curve is coming. And in terms of Oregon Highway, this stretch has a lot.
About 800 signs along this section.
That's a lot of signs.
It's a lot of signs.
Placing the 25-mile-an-hour driver speed with limits just in the grid. It's advised that you should pay attention.
If it's a 35-mile-an-hour corner, you should be taking it at 35 miles an hour.
Eventually, rounding a corner on a rural part of Oregon Highway will carry warning and advisory speed designed to fit today's road and car. Standardized speed in Portland, Oregon matches what you'd expect across the nation in Portland, Maine. I'm Constable.
Why do counties matter? Simple. Counties provide the services we all depend on. If you're concerned about crime, get a regular flu shot. Drive to work. Take public transportation. Or experience a natural disaster in your community. Chances are you benefit from county services. That's why counties matter. With America's system of federalism, counties are a key level of government, serving the people directly. So, do you vote? Had a recent hospital stay? Know someone in a nursing home? More reasons why counties matter. There are 3,069 counties across the country, with populations big and small. Most of us live and work in one. Even the nation's capital is considered a county. These county governments ensure that the food you eat in restaurants is safe. They care for the mentally ill, run court systems, build local economies, and operate 911 emergency systems. They manage parks and recreation facilities. And the list goes on. Thing is, counties serve the American people in so many ways, keeping our communities healthy, vibrant, safe, and fiscally sound. That's why counties matter.
Well, we're here with Commissioner Colleen Roberts for the monthly meeting of the ONC board, which Colleen sits on. Colleen, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your mission and what you guys discuss at these monthly meetings?
Sure. Well, our ONC board is of the 18 counties in Oregon that have the ONC lands on their BLM federal lands. And we discuss everything about these lands. The ONC Act of 1937 is our primary focus, how the decisions that these lands get managed, do they match up with the congressional mandate of the ONC Act, and how we can better educate and help administer the care of these lands for the health and safety and welfare of the citizens that we represent.
I would imagine you discuss things like how many board feet can be taken out of the forest in different areas. Are these things that come up each month?
Yes, well, harvest timber management is a big part of our conversation, as is lately the fire issues.
We're here today with Commissioner Dan DeYoung of Josephine County. Dan, you have an important role on the ONC Lands Board, and we're here in beautiful Gold Beach, Oregon, discussing the monthly matters of ONC. What was your main focus at this meeting?
Today we had a really good sit down with two representatives from the BLM. And we work with BLM because actually the ONC lands are on BLM lands, and that's our concern. Mainly the ONC Board of Directors, which is a membership from all 18 counties. We always meet, I think it's bi-monthly, and then we have an annual meeting. And it's basically to discuss what the sign says, forest health, jobs, and county services. That the money coming from the sale of timber on ONC lands goes through the federal government. They take their share out of it and then return it back to the counties to be used for basically jobs, county services. A lot of county services, such as law enforcement, schools. There's just an awful lot of things that these individual counties can use the money for. But it's from the sale of timber on the ONC lands. ONC lands goes way back to 1937 with the ONC 1937 ONC Congressional Act and the ONC Act of 1937. We're just trying to get back to the actual verbiage and the language that's in that act. It's surprising to us how we can ignore a congressional act. That remains to be answered by the federal government. But that's what we want to get back to.
Hi there. I'm Tillamook County Commissioner Dave Yamamoto. I'm a member of the ONC board and also the chair of the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties. And in Tillamook County, it's very important that we consider natural resource-based economies. So in Tillamook County, we have lots of dairy. I'm sure you're familiar with Tillamook Creamery, but also lots of state and federal timberlands. When it comes to federal timberlands in particular, everyone thinks that we're looking at timber revenue. And that's very important, but one side of the coin that people don't consider are the family wage jobs that come with all timber. It's not just the timber receipts that we get. These are family wage jobs, these are fully benefited jobs. Whereas on the tourism side, the income is about a third of what we would consider a family wage job, and there are also no benefits with those.
Ah.
So timber receipts are very important, but it's the family wage jobs that they create at the same time, which are very important to counties like Tillamook.
Perfect. Keeping it real for families in Tillamook
Absolutely.
County.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yamamoto.
Thank you very much.
All right. We are here with County Commissioner Bob Main from Coos County, Oregon. And we've had the monthly meeting of O&C Lands here. And Mr. Main, Commissioner Main, I should say, tell us what your role is, Bob, on the O&C Lands Board.
I am the Vice President of the ONC Association of Oregon Sea Counties.
Okay.
Consists of 18 ONC counties, Western Oregon counties.
Okay.
And we...
Center of the county.
Could be because
The
there
bus
is public
transit.
transit.
If you have it on
Okay, we're
the-
up and
yeah,
running.
If
If
you
it's on
would
the
have had
route.
hours.
Glad I'm
Call
not
to
a
order.
lawyer.
No, you're not out, nobody's out of order, it's just we're starting to back up. And it's clear as mud, right?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Well, I think as far as like, I think we've had some really good dialogue, and I think we have some takeaways with researching the city of Gold Beach's current
Yeah,
practices.
I wish we had Brookings here.
I do too.
I really wish we do, because you've answered a lot of questions, Anthony, and that's extremely helpful. What we didn't discuss, and I know people will watch this recording, was I asked Anthony basically what the accountability was, and understanding that the city of Brookings and Gold Beach has a municipal court. So when you're cited on a ordinance issue, that's going to go to the municipal court, whereas the county is different, that's going to go to the district attorney's office. So it's important to recognize the differences there, and that's important. And you've had one citation issued as it relates, and I'm assuming, and I think you weren't sure about it, but whatever the accountability was it financial, or was it probably some type of fine, a low-level fine, which is what ours is. But the other thing that I want to say right now is, because I know people will watch the recording of this, is if anyone knows of a person who has life experiences that would be a really good fit for this community resource officer position, please encourage them to put in. Please reach out to them. Please let them know about this position, because this is a position that could be very impactful in multiple ways. And it's going to be something that's both challenging and rewarding, but very impactful to the community.
And it's not a sworn officer position.
No, it's not. It's not. And
It's a
they
county
will.
employee position.
They will have the authority to enforce the ordinance. They will work under the umbrella of the sheriff's office, but they are not they're not a gun carrying police officer. And they will also be very actively involved in the community
And working with the people
exactly.
That's the goal here.
Yeah. So, but we're looking for the right person. We're looking for the right fit. So, and I don't want to settle for just anybody. I want to, even if we have to search outside the area, I want to make sure that we get the right person involved.
And I think we all agree with you.
The only thing I wish is that we had I like the idea of the municipal court scenario. I've had some interest from at least one person who would love to act as a judge in that regard, but so I don't know if we could ever make that work. It just would be more, direct with the public.
I don't know whether he's joking or telling the truth.
Oh, I'm dead serious.
Okay. Are you going to share who that?
Absolutely not.
All right.
It's not me.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
I think this was a good start to the conversation.
Got a question just for Anthony. So you had one citation. Do you guys have that 90-day rule or whatever that says you got 90 days to come to an agreement? Or
No, he violated the ordinance, and so he got a ticket.
Okay.
Now he has to go to court.
okay.
And then he would present his case to the judge for any
Municipal
type of
court, right?
mitigation, and the judge would make a ruling based on.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm talking about.
Connie,
Just real quick, can I get that job description emailed to me?
sure.
I think it's.
Or is it on the website?
It hasn't been
Posted.
it hasn't been posted. We're trying to get ahead of that right now.
Okay,
So it maybe later in this week, possibly next week. I know it's in HR right now to make the final modifications. But I'm trying to be as proactive as I can to get the word out there so people start looking for it and start thinking about it, and also reaching out to people they know that would be a good fit for it.
Do you already have a compensation range?
That's part of the issue that we have to work out with the HR, is to make sure that it's in accordance with the rest of the county. And that's like the final step, and I think that's where it's at right now.
Yes.
Kurt?
What qualifications would be for that job? 'Cause that is something that I actually might be interested in as well.
Do you remember, Tim?
Yeah, 1 year of working, high school education, 1 year of working, or GED, 1 year of working in and around basically this, I think we said social services or it wasn't specifically law enforcement, but it would be somebody
No,
working.
it wasn't law enforcement. It was experience associated with basically the job.
It'll be posted soon for you to
Well,
review.
I worked with Fed for a while. Would that qualify?
So you'd have to go through the process when it all comes out, you'll be able to look at it and, it's. I think Brett was first, bud.
He got ahead of me.
Okay, all
I
right.
think he has more to say.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Lauren Kessler. I'm the president of Neighbors to Neighbors Port Orford, and I'm
You can
here.
have a seat up here.
And I would like to add to your very good qualifications, at least a year to 2 years of being homeless yourself.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that's a.
You don't think that's important to work with people?
I think.
I think it's
You
a
don't think
legitimate
knowing
qualification for sure.
what-
It's a legitimate
it's like?
qualification, but you don't have to have been.
No,
Have
you
to
can-
have been homeless.
Then how can you share and understand the position that people are in?
Are we
No,
looking-
you know that the longer they stay homeless, the more issues they have. So these people who have come out of it, and
Yeah.
some of them are very well educated, okay, they could qualify for this position.
Yeah. Well.
And in our town, we have 2 people who voluntarily, who have worked with us and come out of homelessness, who are working with our people at our site, and it works wonders.
No, I agree. It's a good qualification, but to make that mandatory? What do you guys think?
Let me ask you this: do the people that work up in Port Orford, do they hold the people accountable? Are they?
Yes.
They're writing
Yeah.
tickets. They're
They
legally holding
actually,
them
when
accountable.
people come to our site, they have to fill out, they read these rules, and they sign that they accept these rules. They don't just read them, they sign them.
Yep.
Give us a paper, they keep their copy, and we have what we are allowed to do if they do not stay within our rules.
Right. Do those people enforce those?
Yes.
Those people go out.
Yes, they will go out and say, you're in your 10 feet, your tent is, you've got too much mess on the ground. You've got to clean it up. You got 24 hours to clean it up, otherwise you're in violation.
That's good.
If we tell you you're in total violation, you have to leave.
That's good.
And it's working. I have been told by 2 young ladies who are traveling up and down the coast. I don't know if they're homeless or not. One is a nurse, or was, and she goes, I stay in your spot because it's safe and you've got rules. She goes, and I hear people talking about, I'm not staying in Port Orford. Now, they stay at Hubbard Creek, or they stay north of Port Orford in the woods there, but they're not coming into Port Orford because they don't want to follow the rules.
You know what? But I will counter that with the city of Brookings has a community service officer, community resource officer.
Yes.
Who's a sworn officer, who is not required to have been homeless to work with the homeless.
Have they been trained to work in these situations?
Well, this person will get a lot of training, and I would hate to have a candidate put in for this job that maybe had an education in law enforcement and maybe had life experience and work experience in social work, and maybe was a veteran, and we couldn't hire him because they were not homeless. I'd hate to discount that that person as a potential candidate, because that person may be a good fit.
Commissioner, we have somebody who is homeless.
They should
Was
put
a
in.
police officer.
They should put in.
Did serve in the military.
They should put in.
And they are homeless.
They should put in.
And I'm going to tell them about it when it's posted.
And that's all things that would be taken into consideration as you go through the selection process for this, because I can tell you that I'll be part of the interview process for that, because the finding the right fit is critical to make this effective for everyone.
Brett, did you have a question?
I just quickly wanted to go over a couple of thoughts I had before I got here and some things that have expanded a little bit while we've been talking. I'm pretty sure, if I understand properly, what's driving this whole thing was the enrollment of House Bill 3115. That's been 2 years ago. I've been hearing about this in Port Orford for the past year. The panic of, we got to do something before July 1st, because then we're going to have to just let people camp wherever they want. So I know in Port Orford we've been working on that issue, but one of the pieces, some of the wording that I noticed in the House bill that really sticks out to me, and I know it's really tough to define, objectively reasonable when it comes to times and places and et cetera and so on. But I'm thinking that something that might be objectively reasonable would be to designate a northern region, a central region, and a southern region for the county, where you might have a set of rules, similar to Port Orford. How are you going to enforce the county roads through the whole county? People just camping in the blackberry brambles, you can't see them, but they're camping out there. Is the sheriff going to do that? And I would love to, but let me finish my point before you comment, if you would. So code enforcement, I love the idea of having code enforcement, but I have 2 open complaints with code enforcement for building violations where I live. That one of them I was told there's nothing they can do, and the other one I'm still not getting any response on. So I think it's a lot to unload onto code enforcement when they've got some other
Right, and that's
things to do. And this is a bit more of what sounds like law enforcement.
Brett, that's why we're bifurcating it into 3 categories. And right now we don't have code enforcement, so that's why
I'm just trying to think into the future, some things for you to consider when making your decisions here. And then I also wonder how the county's going to notify the houseless community of the rules on county roads and county property throughout our gigantic, I call it gigantic county, it's long. I've traveled it quite a bit. And sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Brett Cecil from Port Orford. So just to give that a little bit of context. And then my last point that I just wrote on here was, wouldn't it make sense to designate spaces in the county? And I'll leave you with that just to think about. I think those are things that we need to really look at. Thank you.
Anybody like to address any of those?
I think we've actually addressed most of them.
That's why we're here. That's what we're talking about.
That's what, yeah, obviously we're.
I think I just want to say in closing that there seems to be a lot of assumptions are made when we don't have this kind of open dialogue. So again, I appreciate being invited here and being able to have this workshop. But I want to address one assumption that I keep hearing, that I think I keep hearing, is that those of us who do work with the population are just enabling, and we're not going to enforce any rules, and we're not going to play within your guidelines. And I'm here to tell you that that's not how our organization operates. You give us information to give out to our folks, we will share that information in whole and in truth, and we will encourage people to follow the rules. We do that now. We don't tell people. We could have told people. I know I was in a meeting in the library in Checo when people were told by
people
to go ahead, and we could be doing that same thing. We've not done that. I believe that we walk our talk, and I believe that we work with character, and we do hold our folks accountable. Kirk can tell you I'm a mother of 3 adult children. I could put my mom hat on when I need to, and I don't enable people. We offer them support. If they take advantage of that support, we case manage. We don't work any harder for a client than they're willing to work for themselves. So I just want to dispel the notion that we are bleeding heart liberals that are just want to give free stuff to people who don't want to work for it. That's not what we're about.
think
Again,
one
there's
thing that I-
segments of that population
one thing
that
that
are
I said-
not people that we can work with because we're not trained.
One thing that I said earlier, maybe it came out wrong, but basically, I don't see it working unless we have, I mean, we can have our resources, but just with the nature of the way our situation is, I feel like we are gonna need advocacy groups that are gonna partner with the population to the extent possible. So, because it's just it's a lot, and there's gonna need to be, we have to look at how that gets funded, and we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
That we're taking advantage of all the funding that's on
Right.
the table for us all, because there is money at this state that we could work together on an application, for example, to pull ESG or SHOP monies in to create a support infrastructure at a location, or to support the needed basic human needs that people have in a location. Down the road, when you're ready to explore that, that's an opportunity for us to work together.
Well, keep us informed, please, Beth, if you, those, just a
Mr.
second, Brad, I
Mr.
think,
Chair- okay,
I think Brad was, did you have a comment? I could sense it.
Just a brief one. Thank you for that, Beth. I appreciate that. And the key word, I think, is finding balance. And I think that's really important. And balance with the community, balance with everyone's needs. And that's the intent behind this meeting today.
Brett?
I'll try and make it really brief. Brett Cecil, Port Orford.
Up to the.
Yes, on my way.
Good exercise.
So just one other point I forgot to write down. The idea of having designated spaces for this, we have not a lot, but a few non-governmental organizations, NGOs, most of us know them as, that are willing to help out in this situation. And if they have a place where they can be, where they can meet the people that have needs, I think we stand a lot better chance of helping to resolve our houseless issue, or to assist people that are in a houseless situation during that time, if we have a place where our NGOs can meet the people that have the needs, rather than trying to walk out around county roads and highways trying to find people that have needs. We may resolve a bigger piece of the problem than by having them scattered to the wind in the county. So I just wanted to add that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
So we do have a couple other workshops. We have a workshop coming up on a warming center at 1 o'clock, and then some workshops coming up, and maybe Natasha can share the dates on those that are related to behavioral health and public health.
We have that on September 14th. That will be held at the Emergency Operations Center in Brookings. So right after City Hall in the parking lot, they have a big building. And I believe that's at 10 a.m. I want to say, but yes, at 10
And
a.m.
where can people find information about those, Natasha?
On our government website, I have the date posted of the meeting and where it's located at. I do not have the actual agenda packet out there for us yet, but everything else is there. If you go to the agenda and the minutes pages, our future agendas are posted there.
You're gonna send out invitations like we did for this one? Good.
I already have.
Good. All right.
Yes.
Then maybe send them out again. Yes, sir.
So I just walk around town,
Come on up.
The reason we have you come to the microphone, sir, is the audio and the video. It's helpful.
I'm Trey again. So I just walk around town and I have an interest in people. But I was wondering, where do people who are quote unquote homeless, displaced, or whatever, take a shower? Because I saw a man, older guy, dementia. I thought, boy, wouldn't it be great if he had a shower? And so I had every intention of befriending him, and maybe he would want a shower and I could take him there. I don't know. And so I called ADAPT and said, do you have a crisis mental health worker that comes out and meets with people? She said, we know who he is, Trey. And he doesn't want help, so don't be pushing that button with us. And I said, okay. And Beth helped me understand that too. But the bottom line was, I still didn't have a shower. My wife's not going to let me bring him home to our house. So I was wondering, has the port ever considered having a shower in there, or do we have a shower for
Port?
The port?
We're not the port.
I know you're not, but you said you worked for the port.
Well, he, in his other life.
I'm just kidding. I just threw it your way for fun. But is there a shower that the people that need one can
St. Timothy is the only one that offers it. The port shut down, the state park shut down, along with showers.
So,
So they have.
you'd have to go to Brookings.
Brookings.
Or Port Orford.
Or Port Orford.
Coast Community Health has a shower in their building in Port Orford.
Where at?
Coast Community Health has
Okay.
a shower, but
Behind
their
the-
problem is capacity. They need 2 people in there anytime somebody's taking a shower, and they have not been able to staff it to that extent. So their showers have not been as readily available for folks.
Right.
And speaking to that issue,
Allow people who pay their residents to shower. Right now, people rely on the generosity of other people.
And Orca is working, our mayor in Gold Beach also serves on the Orca Community Action Board, and they are working with others on a shower trailer, so it'd be 2 showers a week, up and down from Susan Curry. There's a lot of moving pieces, and I think that this is good that, Pagano and, Beth Parker Hidalgo are here at the table, because I think when we can get the moving pieces moving together.
Right, and I want
it works better.
to
Feels
point,
hard.
I want to point something else out, and this will become an issue when we discuss the warming center at 1 p.m. today. There are different jurisdictions here. So the port, we don't govern the port. We don't govern what happens within the Gold Beach or Brookings. They do. So, you know, a lot of times there's confusion about, you know, people will come to us and say, you know, how come the county's not doing anything? We've got this issue in Gold Beach. Well, it's the city of Gold Beach. And it's just important to recognize what those jurisdictional boundaries are and the responsibilities that come with that.
Okay, yeah, that was more of a Gold Beach question. I
Yeah.
know. Thank you.
but it sounds like it's being addressed. I was just gonna speak to the fact that Harris Beach State Park, so you pull in there, is not, but this is what they're running into at Harris Beach Park. People pull in and go that day use area, the first parking lot on the left, walk across the street, go into the park, shower, and they do stuff in that shower that is, I won't even say, but you can imagine. And then they go back across, get in there, walk down the bike path, or get in a vehicle and leave. And it's a mess. It's a mess. So when somebody said, like, did you, who said two people have to watch it with the, you know,
That's a gender thing.
Okay.
It's a gender thing.
Yeah,
For,
well-
it really, the reason they need to staff is gender and safety. I mean, that's the reason for that.
But what we're running into is a
The
problem.
Port of Brookings, if we didn't have, when those showers were open, you could pay and go in and do them, you would have, you know, so it was at least once a week, someone was spreading excrement all over the walls. And you know, I mean, that's, just, you need to have, then you're at the point where you need to have, it's kind of like the warming shelters, you know, so when we're talking about that, we need to have personnel, we need law enforcement personnel on site. And until, you know, I mean, the shower idea is great, but having this, going up and down that county, it's gonna be Beth, we're gonna trick her into volunteering, and somebody else, and then her life will be over.
Yeah.
So, you know, we ran in out of the cold warming shelter, and law enforcement came by and said hi, and fire came by and did a little walkthrough, but we did not need law enforcement on site for the duration of the winter warming shelter that we operated here in
But
Gold
I'm
Beach.
just saying,
So
it's one of the things that you have to be aware of.
We didn't-
I mean,
I'm just letting you know, so you don't have this concept that there's a burden on law enforcement if we open a warming center?
No, and
It wouldn't be, unless there's, just like any other place, if there's an altercation, then of course. I made one phone call the last day that we were open 24 hours, because we had a gentleman who was refusing to leave. And the officer came and he decided it was time to go when the officer got there. But other than that, we didn't have any
That's perfect.
conflicts
want 'em
or
there all the time.
altercations. So I think I just hope there's not too many misconceptions.
No.
that
No,
it's
but I think
all
there-
derelict. And the gentleman that Trey is talking about, that's a commitment issue.
right.
He needs to go through the court system. He is unsafe on the streets right now. He needs to be in a facility somewhere with med regulations. He needs to be safe, and he's not. And unless or somebody with more education than I do wants to try to wrangle the court system and get him committed, then he's going to stay on our streets.
And that's one of those
Yeah.
bigger issues. It's far
Way
outside this
our
room.
scope
Yeah.
of work, for sure. Yeah.
Connie, I see you're up there. Well,
Well, you said forever hold your peace, and that ain't happening. No, and
To the topic.
well, and I did volunteer and was at the warming center in Brookings, and I think that's probably why you kind of leaned down there and was shocked that I wasn't up here. The only thing I have to say about that is I think the ordinances are doing their jobs in Brookings, and the Coos County one I dug into, it seems to be doing what it's supposed to do. The only things operationally that need to be enhanced, I think, for something like that is planning. The one that happened this winter was done kind of hastily, and volunteers are kind of grabbed and put in there. So screening volunteers is huge, and I think it's important to have enough staff there. And so looking at the staffing issues, and I see law enforcement playing a part in that staffing. So I will take the time and put into writing some of the issues that I saw and observed in that effort. And some of it was process, some of it not having enough staff, and some of it was just first time out.
Yeah.
So,
We'll get better, right? That's the.
but I think the city ordinance does what it's supposed to do.
Was this really the first year we've ever had?
No, they've had them before.
Okay, last winter.
No, regarding the warming center, we had a problem with that because there was a lot of conversation about who was responsible, what the responsibilities were, whose jurisdiction it was under because of the location. And so hopefully at 1 o'clock we can iron all that out. So we can be proactive before we get into a winter situation. So that's the idea.
Alrighty. With that, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back here at 1 o'clock with more fun stuff. City of Brookings Warming Center policy and the City of Coos Bay.
First ever.
Can they tow a laundry trailer behind it?
It took us a long time to get back on our feet. People didn't